Welcome to Interesting Enough. He is Trey. I am Nolan. Thank you guys for joining us once again. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, thank you. Of course, go ahead and give us a like, subscribe. We're on Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. Trey, man, what's going on? How you feeling?
Man, I'm feeling great. I'm a little bit down because the football season's coming to an end, so that's a little bit disappointing. But other than that, I'm feeling great.
Yeah, so we still got the NFL, so that's good. We lost college, so we're gonna definitely talk about the NFL. And I got some things to get off my chest. I'm gonna be honest with you. When I text you, Trey, on Monday, I don't know if it was Monday, and I was like, let's do the pod. What I didn't tell you was I had something to get off my chest. That's why I was trying to rush you to do the pod at the moment. But then I thought about it. I was like, let's do it after the divisional games. But I was a little hot about the Dolphins, so we're gonna talk about all that. But the last time we was on this pod, Nick Saban was still coaching, and I would think we'd be remiss not to even talk about this and bring this up. So everyone knows Nick Saban's retired at this point. Kalen DeBoer, the coach of Washington, is now the coach. There's been a lot of moving parts in college football after the national championship. I guess you could really take the floor either way. I do want to say this. He's the greatest coach of this generation. He has the argument for the greatest coach of all time. But I'm going to ask you this part, and then you can go wherever, Trey. Did you feel when watching throughout this year differently, like maybe this could be the last year, or you weren't sure? Because I didn't really have an inkling of it, but now that I look back, I'm kind of like maybe I just wasn't seeing the signs.
Yeah, I felt like that because, again, I watched a lot of Alabama games. Just a little personal note, my dad's from Alabama, and that's his favorite team. Like, that's who he roots for. He has all the jackets and that kind of paraphernalia, all that kind of jazz. So I've always watched Alabama, even though I don't really care for them. And long story short, I've continued that tradition, and I watched him all throughout this year. And he just seemed a little bit more subdued. Like, we know Nick Saban, we know him to be able to pop off at any moment, cuss somebody out, turn red, have a whole rant or yelling fit on the sideline. And he really didn't do that this year. Even when they were having some challenges, I think the third game of the year, they played USF, and they only won 17-13. In a game they could have realistically lost. And still,
yeah, they almost lost.
And they really should have.
Yeah.
But even after that game, he was talking about something, hey, we just need to make some improvements. He didn't seem as ornery or as fiery as you would have expected coming out of a game like that from Nick Saban. And I think at the end of the day, he was 72 years old. So, like, it just didn't shock me. And I kind of thought he might retire, but I just thought he might give it one more year just to try to go out on top. But at the same time, I think he's kind of tired dealing with the NIL, having to recruit every single year from kids you already recruited. You have to re-recruit them just so they stay. I think he kind of got tired of that, and I just think he was kind of ready to go.
Listen, all them old head coaches, they're all gone. And Nick Saban was basically the last one of their kind, because everyone has had a problem with this NIL situation. And look, to be fair to those guys, the NIL situation I think is great for players, and they should be getting paid. But it's the Wild Wild West out here. Guys are transferring every single year. I mean, we just got a transfer quarterback in Miami, so we're happy about it. But we got guys transferring in and out. Like you said, you basically got to re-recruit guys every year. It's a job that they didn't sign up for, essentially. So the process is changing. And let's be honest, old people don't like change, Trey. Like,
No.
old folks don't like change. I'm not even that old, and I don't like change. So I can't imagine Nick Saban not liking change. And especially change that doesn't necessarily really benefit you. I mean, yeah, you can get some transfer guys yourself to Alabama, but you're also going to lose guys every single year. Even if everything went perfect, you're still going to lose guys because it's just wide open. And again, I think a lot of the decisions people make transferring out the transfer to enter the transfer portal and leave is a lot of times it's not a great decision because people think just the hindsight 2020 with playing time. But it's their decision to make, so it's kind of what it is. These older coaches, I mean, these are historic coaches in our lifetime, and it's not a mystery. Roy Williams, some of this is basketball, so Roy Williams at North Carolina, Jay Wright, who wasn't even that old at Villanova, Coach K, right, a historic coach. I'm missing some people, but Nick Saban. So these are historic coaches of our lifetime in both basketball and football. These are all the coaches we know, and all these coaches in the last 3 years when this NIL situation have all left the sport. The last 3 to 5 years. It's not a mystery that all of a sudden all these guys at the same time are like, hey, I'm kind of out. That's not a mystery. Like, this is kind of what it is at this point. And like, we're gonna keep losing coaches unless we have some reins on this, because college coaches love having control. And right now they just don't have any.
Yeah, and I think you just brought up a good point. Like, we're going to continue to lose coaches if isn't reined in. But I think, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, I think eventually this will get reined in. And I think what's going to end up happening sometime down the line is that the schools are going to end up paying the players, and it's just pretty much going to be under contract. And I think that's going to be the end of the NIL as we know it.
I don't think. Well, there's never going to be the NIL just because, like, you should still be able to make money off of. Well, you think they would end it just if they gave them contracts? Because
well, maybe I shouldn't say the end of the NIL, but I think it'd be. I think once they give them contracts, I think NIL will be much more regulated because right now it's kind of wild, wild west.
Oh, not kind of.
Well, it is. So I think it'll be much more regulated, and I think like some of the little gimmicks they're using just won't be able to fly anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really hard. I mean, the sport is in a good place in general because players are getting paid in what they deserve. But it's also in a tough place because a lot of these guys are making decisions for the wrong reasons, as we've seen. You know, so that's the tough part about it. And these guys morally just don't agree with it. But can we just talk about this was probably Nick Saban's greatest coaching job, Trey? Because
easily.
And as his last year, I was thinking that Nick Saban might want to stay and they'll get some more talent in and Jalen Milroe will improve and things like that. But at the end of the day, this is probably the best time to leave because this is like the third year in a row they haven't had a national championship. So for Alabama fans, that's like a full on.
It's a meltdown.
Yeah, it's like a full on meltdown. They lost an overtime game in the college football playoff, and these guys are not satisfied.
To the team that won the national championship.
To the ultimate team. By the way, not just the team that won the national championship, pretty much the team who was the best team all year in college football.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, this is just a kind of tough thing to see. But we're gonna miss Nick Saban. He can still kick rocks. I'm a Dolphins fan, so y'all know how I stand on that. But I'm gonna be respectful because we do have a podcast to do. But it kind of is what it is at this point. But got to give Nick Saban his flowers. Does he go down as the greatest coach ever, though, Trey? That's the question.
So we talking about the greatest college coach? Is like just greatest coach, period.
Okay, well, I mean,
no, I'm just asking, like seriously, because the reason I say that. Okay, hold on, let me say, we got Bill Belichick in the NFL, like the two greatest coaches at the same time. So that's why I'm asking.
I would say the greatest. Yeah, let's do college. I mean,
yes,
because it's hard to kind of when you're doing that. I mean, NFL football is almost a different sport in a way, so I don't want to compare it to that way. So at least college.
Yeah, he's the greatest college coach of all time. Well, college football. I know John Wooden, and Mike Krzyzewski. They have their arguments for basketball, but at least college football, yeah. And the crazy part is Alabama had probably the other greatest coach of all time in Bear Bryant.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's competing against Bear Bryant. So
I do want to ask you a question though to follow up on that.
Mm-hmm.
If you were Kalen DeBoer, would you try to follow up Nick Saban? Because I think he made a terrible choice.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, okay. Why?
All right. I mean, a couple reasons. Well, one, the money. All right. So
he was gonna get paid well at Washington. So I know what you're saying, but no, that doesn't really mean anything.
If you're, and you and I talk about this all the time. You are gonna. First of all, Washington. Let's be fair. Washington's a great job. This isn't like some small mid-major or whatever. Washington's a great job. It's a perennial contender, right? Like even since the 90s and 80s, like they've always been an excellent team. So I don't think you would leave Washington for a lot of situations. And he even said it. Alabama's one of the maybe 2 or 3 schools in the country that I would even consider leaving that job for. And look, at the Alabama thing, you already know they're going to have high expectations and they're not going to be satisfied. It is what it is. But if you do win at Alabama, you're a legend forever. Even if you only win one because you're following Nick Saban. And even if you do win one and they fire you a couple years later because there's Alabama fans and the boosters and all that are very, they're very impatient. What do we always talk about, Trey? You can fall down to another job at that point. You've already been the coach of Alabama. That's already on your resume forever. So you can go anywhere else after that. So you got to take it while the block is hot. You got to take it while the block is hot.
I agree, but my thing is, he's going to fall down. Like if it doesn't work out at Alabama, he's going to get another job. But the problem is, you already built this up at Washington. So even if you fall down, it's just like Now I got to build something else up at a new school, at a new place. And this
So
Washington team that you build up, they can compete for national titles. Like, it's not like, oh, I'm building up a team that's going to go 9-3. No, we're building up a team that can win it all.
hold on. You're misinterpreting what I'm saying. When I say he gonna fall down, he can fall down and get to the NFL just being the Alabama coach. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not even just talking about college anymore. Like that's where his avenues have opened up, where it doesn't necessarily just. I mean, it'll open up too at Washington. Don't get it twisted, but if the doors are a lot, you know, if you got to open the door in Washington, you probably got to spray some WD-40 on it, right? Like, it's rusty. Doors wide open once you're in Alabama. Like, once you're in Alabama, it's wide open, whether you win or lose, because you were the coach at Alabama. Like, we can all agree on that. And if you're in all these coaches trade, we know about this. They're all looking for the next thing. Like, they're just like the players when that they're all looking for the grass is greener, and they all want the bigger opportunity. And why stay in Washington? Because it's never going to get as good as the season as you had, Trey. Can we be honest about that? Like, as good as Washington is, they caught lightning in a bottle there.
But, I mean, they were just in the college football playoffs. Was that 2016?
And what happened in the college football playoff when they went there?
I know, but I'm just saying, like, I mean, hey, for God's sake, we're Miami fans that we haven't even sniffed the college football playoffs. But I still think we're a name to be kind of reckoned with, at least if you, like, in namesake. So, like, I'm not going to treat Washington like they're nobody. You know what I mean?
They're not nobody, but he was never going to have a better season than he did now, because even if he goes to Washington and they compete for college football playoff, what situation is he going to have a veteran 24-year-old quarterback and two first-round wide receivers, one third-round wide receiver? Like, that they just a lot of things went right at the perfect time in a conference that was disbanding. Like, it's just a lot of things that happened, and you remember they're going to go to a tougher conference too. So
hey, now that is one great point you brought up. They're going to go to a tougher conference.
Gonna be harder to compete. I mean, it's gonna be hard. And I'm not saying that he couldn't do it, but the playing field would have been leveled. You're competing against these other Big Ten and even potentially SEC schools when you're recruiting. Where Washington always had that advantage of being in the West Coast. There's like Bomani Jones says, there's a million schools in California. I mean, there's a million kids in California, right? Like, they can't all go to USC and UCLA. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're gonna get some of them. So I don't know. I think you got to take the job. And to be honest with you, the only other options that Alabama had was Sarkisian, and I don't even think Lane Kiffin. Like, if we're talking about realistic, and Dan Lanning. And
I know Mike Norvell got brought up.
Mike Norvell got brought up. Sarkisian, I mean, at this point, what he's done at Texas and bringing Texas back, that's almost a lateral move at this point because of the amount of money that Texas has. So he's not going to go. Lanning was the other shot. I mean, other than that, I mean, it's just DeBoer. And DeBoer's been excellent. He's been excellent everywhere he goes. And he also seems like a coach that doesn't really have like a huge ego problem, which is like probably the main thing that you don't want to have when you're going to go to be the Alabama head coach.
I mean, I don't think it matters.
No matter what. Well, it doesn't matter. You think how you think would have happened if Dabo Swinney was the coach out there? You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. It could be different. It's a certain personality that's got to work over there too. Like, you can't just be Dabo Swinney on the radio show just snapping at these Alabama fans, because they're gonna be on the radio show every Monday morning. Like, if you win 40-0, they're gonna be on a radio show talking about why you ain't win 55-0. Like, that's what they are. Like, for majority of them. I'm not saying all of them, but that's what the beast is created over there. So, I'm interested to see how this works with recruiting, and you've talked about it too. Let's see what players hit the portal. We've already seen a couple hit the portal. So will a lot of those guys stay and give Kalen DeBoer a chance? We'll tap into that more as we get into college football as a season. But let's get to some NFL stuff, Trey. I gotta start with the Dolphins, and I'm not even gonna pose a question to you. I just gotta get this off my mind.
Go for it. Okay? Go for it. Take off.
I gotta get this off my mind. Okay. All right. I hear all this talk. The Dolphins can't play in the cold. Let me just inform some people. The Dolphins can play in the cold. You and I talked about this. They went to Buffalo last year and lost by a touchdown in the cold. The Dolphins have to play in historic cold, Trey. Historic cold. Not no regular 30 degrees cold. They was playing in below zero type of cold and wind chill. So people saying Tua can't play in the cold, I don't necessarily believe that. That was just historic cold. Now, they were the better team. We had a bunch of injuries, but I'm going to be honest, the Dolphins didn't show up. But can I throw a theory at you, Trey? Let me just throw a theory, and you just tell me how you feel about this. So I'm watching the Dolphins, and time's running down, and we're losing. And the Dolphins, it's extension time, right? We got to pay Tua. Obviously, he's not going to get top quarterback money, but he's going to command a nice check, right? Obviously, that's worrisome because we haven't seen Tua, if I'm fair, haven't beat a lot of excellent teams and seems to sometimes be one-dimensional. I think these are all fair things. As a Dolphins fan, I could even say this. I don't think the Dolphins should necessarily get rid of Tua. I'm going to just go on record. However, if they were to get rid of Tua, I think this would be the year to do it, Trey. And just follow me here, okay? This would be the year to do it when you have a team when guys come back healthy, are going to be good. However, a little bit older. Jalen Ramsey, Xavier Howard, Bradley Chubb's not getting any younger. Mostert, Tyreek Hill's past 30, right? So this is kind of win now mode if you're the Dolphins. Like they don't have all day, right? The second part about this is it's not going to get any easier in the AFC. And I'm looking around at these teams, Trey. The Rams, they got rid of Jared Goff when they were a really good team and got to the Super Bowl, and they pivoted and got Stafford. We've seen Alex Smith to Patrick Mahomes. We've seen this happen in a couple different scenarios where the situation is good, but you knew there was a ceiling to it. And that's kind of how I feel. Again, I want to preface what I'm about to say is I don't think the Dolphins should make this move. I do think it's a conversation to be had and maybe a meeting. I think the Dolphins should go try to get a veteran quarterback. Now, you ask, who would be the veteran quarterback? So I scan the landscape of the league, Trey. There's not really a lot of guys available. We can be fair, right? Like, there's not a lot of guys that would be as good as Tua or better, if we're being fair. Kirk Cousins, he's coming off an injury. I don't know how much better that gets you. There's a couple other guys.
What about Baker?
I thought about a guy. No, you said Baker?
Mm-hmm.
No, not Baker. He's going to probably re-sign there. He's had a great year. The only guy that's value is low that can probably play just as well as Tua and then maybe give you some self-creation when everything isn't perfect, because that's the thing with Tua. When everything isn't perfect, sometimes it's tough. Can they at least make a call about the Russell Wilson thing, Trey? I mean, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world.
Could that get you fired? I understand what you're saying, but Russell Wilson, he's coming off a couple down years. Like, his stock has never been lower in NFL. And if he has even similar year to what he had this year, I'm not even going to say worse, but similar year, and your team flames out, you're getting fired. Or your team doesn't make the playoffs, you're getting fired. At least with Tua, if you happen to get flamed, if you flame out the first round, you might buy yourself one more year because they might be like, okay, Mike McDaniels, go get another quarterback. We'll give you one more year. But if the Russell thing flames out, you're done. You're toast. Done.
Okay, so I'm glad you said that. So that brings me to my next point, because I've thought about every angle about this. You're like, okay, well, let's just look at it on just a plan standpoint. This is yes or no. Do you think Russell Wilson can execute offense at the same level as Tua can? That offense?
I would say yes.
Okay. Can we agree that Russell Wilson can still create a couple plays more than Tua can with his legs if something isn't perfect?
Yes.
Okay, so that's all I'm asking for. I'm not asking for Russell Wilson to be Russell Wilson from Seattle. I'm asking him to manage the game like Tua does now. But then when we're in bigger games, when things aren't perfect, just make a couple plays here and there. That's all I'm asking. Just make a couple plays. We know he can still throw the deep ball. We saw it this year. Just make a couple plays. I'm not asking him to be a top 10 quarterback.
See, actually, the thing that scares me is he's looking worse every year. I mean, I guess he had a kind of pick-up year. He got a little bit better this year, but that's just because of how bad he looked last year. But even when you're looking at the end of Seattle, he looks like he's getting worse every year. So that scares me. I don't want a quarterback that's getting worse every year.
But worse from his really, really high ceiling. Okay, so second, how much better do you think Tua is going to be? That's the legitimate question. It's not about how bad Russell Wilson going to get. How much better do you think Tua is going to? What's the improvement that you're going to see from Tua? That's that great.
See, and I guess we're going to take different approaches, because I had the idea about the Dolphins and watching them because I wasn't too pleased watching Tua either.
Wait, hold on. Sit on that theory, because let me just finish this thought.
Okay.
To answer your specific question about you have to get rid of him, Trey, let's call it what it is. The Dolphins go to the playoffs next year and they lose in the first round. Mike McDaniels getting fired anyway. Like, that's the NFL. Like, that's just what it's going to be.
Yeah, unless Tua's hurt.
Tua was hurt. Let's say everything was healthy because Tua did play all 17 games. So my theory is, if you're going to get rid of the coach anyway, if it doesn't work, why not take a stab at Russell Wilson, get him on cheap for 2 years? If it doesn't work in those 2 years, we'll go ahead and clean house. McDaniel will probably be gone. Get rid of the quarterback, and all these guys are older anyway. Jalen Ramsey, Tyreek Hill, these guys will be older and on the way out. Then we could just start from scratch.
Because if it doesn't work, you might get fired midway through the season. You might not even make it a whole season.
I don't think they would fire him midway through the season. Because think about it, it's not going to be terrible with that many weapons, Trey. It's not going to be that terrible. Like, not with that many weapons. And that, like, McDaniels, can we agree on this? Look, Sean Payton is still with these Bill Parcells offense, like that archaic stuff. Mike McDaniels is going to scheme something up. We could agree with that, right? Like, he's with the LaFleur and Shanahan tree. They're going to scheme something up now. It's not going to just be like Trey, people left Tua for dead, and look how he got Tua looking. He going to scheme something up with Russell. And you're getting a motivated Russell Wilson that just got kicked to the curb. I'm just saying.
He was motivated this year. What you talking about?
Really, I'm pretty sure he's more motivated this year after they just tried that man with the injury clause and then benched him and then had him trotting out there on the field. That was disrespectful to even Russell Wilson for them to do him like that. Like, I'm sorry. Like, we got to call it keep it a spade a spade. Like, how they did him like that with that injury clause was wrong. It was wrong. Like, regardless. So I'm just saying it checks a lot of boxes. It's not a high risk because you are not going to be the guy that's, again, we got to make the money work. We're not looking to pay him that money, right? Like, we got to get him on a deal that works for us. But why not kick the tires on it? Because would you really want to pay Tua that much money to be your franchise quarterback? That's all I'm saying. Go ahead with your previous theory. Go ahead.
No, I wouldn't. Just saying that I wouldn't. My theory is just that you hope that Tua can become a little bit better this year and that you can go deep into the playoffs with him. But on the off chance that he doesn't and you get another year, I think this offseason, if you can get him in the 4th or 5th round, you take a flyer on a J.J. McCarthy or Bo Nix, and you have somebody, like, you just have another bullet in the chamber.
I don't like the young quarterback route with this roster. That's my only problem.
See, I'm kind of hesitant on it too, but the only thing is you're hoping that you can hit like a Brock Purdy kind of situation. And I know that was a diamond in the rough. You know, that might be a 1 in a million type shot. But with this roster and with the offensive pieces it has, and with Mike McDaniels, who I have a lot of respect for his offensive game planning, if anybody else was able to hit a Brock Purdy kind of situation in the NFL, I think it would be this Miami team with Mike McDaniel at the helm.
My whole thing is I don't want to just draft a quarterback young just to draft a quarterback and just to be like, we need competition. Like, the only way
it's not even so much competition as it is. I don't think he's going to be better game one. So I don't think that quarterback would start over Tua. But I think you're thinking about the future because I think you're starting to realize that Tua may not be the future. That's why.
But you're forgetting the point. That won't matter if we pay him anyway. Then he is part of our future. That's the problem.
But my point is, you could do something like a 3-year deal. You don't have to pay him a 5-year colossal deal.
And if we do that, I'd rather just rip the Band-Aid off. And if Tua's not good, we'll just be trash, and then we can take and get a better quarterback. I'm not trying to just draft some guy in the 4th or 5th round and be like, well, he's our insurance plan if Tua's not that good, and then it ends up being Bo Nix or somebody that's actually not really that good. Like, I don't like that plan. My theory is do what the Dolphins have been doing. Go all in. You know what the Dolphins needed, Trey, in the draft? They needed a couple linebackers. They needed a lineman. You know what they did? They're like, nah, we're going to get the fastest running back in the draft. Like, they doubled down and tripled down on the speed. Double down on what you've got going on now and either pay Tua or get off Tua and kick the tires on a Russell Wilson. And I know it sounds crazy to think about Russell Wilson in the Dolphins uniform because of a million reasons. But no one's going to sit here and tell me that Russell Wilson can't do what Tua just did this year or even similar to it, period.
I just think. Listen, like I said, Russell Wilson, it looks like he's getting worse every year. I'm not buying that. I'm sorry.
Well, to be honest with you, are we not going to act like for a month and a half we weren't singing his praises that he was
we were, but then he came back down to reality. But we were.
he came back down to reality, or the Broncos did? Because I mean, it's not like that was the greatest team either. And listen, let's be fair. Let's be fair too. Sean Payton did. If you saw the offense they were running, I mean, they were just basically running the ball and asking him to dink and dunk. But I'm not going to act like Russell Wilson can't play at all, because I saw him make some deep throws and make a couple big plays in some of those games. And Sean Payton can be really stubborn too. And Russell Wilson was never his guy. So Sean Payton has been a guy that he wants you to run his offense, and he's not molding the offense to you. You need to mold his offense. He's one of those old school coaches. So I'm not putting the blame on him completely, but I can't just be like, if Baker Mayfield, Trey, can have this resurgence, Russell Wilson can. I'm sorry. Like, and I don't know. That's just the way I think about it. But speaking of that, let's talk about Baker Mayfield. I mean, he's got to get the bag now, Trey, right? Like, he's got to get the bag. I mean, this is as good of a contract year as you can get into with Tampa beating the Eagles. Now, when you looked at that game, is it more bad Eagles or was it good Tampa? Because, I mean, that was a tough watch on one end if you're Philly.
Well, I think it was more bad. I think it was a little bit of both. I think it was mainly bad Eagles, just because didn't they lose like the last 5 of their 6 games? Like, they were just.
Yeah, they lost, like, I think it was, it was like 1-4 in the last 5 or something crazy like that. Yeah,
pretty much. They were ending up the last couple of games. Nothing was going good for them. They were falling apart, and they just fell even more apart during the playoff game. But also, the one good thing for Tampa Bay is that the good Baker Mayfield showed up. And as you and I, we watched Baker Mayfield throughout the years, including college. And I think we both can agree that some days you get a really good Baker Mayfield where he looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And then other times you get the bad Baker Mayfield where you're wondering about, do you even want to get him a contract next season? So I say all that to say, too, I want to preface my comments correctly. I like Baker Mayfield. I like what he's done with Tampa Bay, but I would be really hesitant with giving him too many years or too much money on this contract, because I could easily see it next year he coming in, throwing 2 or 3 picks a game, and Tampa Bay being nowhere near the playoffs.
Well, to be fair to Baker Mayfield, and we've talked about this, he was never that bad that people try to make it sound like. The narrative kind of got a little overblown. I think we can agree there. He had one bad year in Cleveland where he hurt his shoulder. But other than that, he had been some mediocre quarterback play, but it wasn't like he was like ever one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. You know, he didn't get Mac Jones level or anything like that. So I got to give him credit there. But with the Philly situation, I mean, I just think they needed a reset year. I mean, Jalen Hurts, he was already hurt with the knee. Then he hurt his finger. A.J. Brown's out. I mean, they just got a million things going on. The offensive line hasn't even played as well. And don't get me started on that damn defense. Boy, oh boy. What, Trey, Dave was talking to me all draft time about this whole defensive line, this and that. They made a couple plays, but they did not. This was not the Philly. What happened to Hassan Reddick, the pass rush from last year? What happened to all that? Like, I didn't see any of that. And that secondary, I don't know what they was doing, Trey, but they had more missed tackles than the Miami Hurricanes. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Why is Matt Patricia the DC?
Your question is your question is as good as mine. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how Matt Patricia keeps getting jobs.
I don't either, but I think Sirianni's going.
Why did they demote Sean Desai?
Huh?
Why did they demote the defensive coordinator?
I have no idea, but I think, long story short, I think that Nick Sirianni is going to pay for that decision. And like you said, demoting the defensive coordinator before that, you demoted him in the middle of the season. Why? I don't know. I think he's going to end up paying for that decision. And to me, it really wouldn't shock me if he got fired this offseason. He doesn't seem well liked for whatever reason, and I think the players they didn't buy into him. Like, they lost faith in him. And we know how Philly can be. Like, we're talking about Alabama, but we know how the Philly fans can be. So I think this might be their windows just might be closed, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Well, I'm not going to say their window's closed, because I think a lot of their young stars are still there. So I'm not going to say you still got a young star quarterback. You got A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. They're going to probably lose Jason Kelce, but that offensive line, for the most part, is still really good. I don't think they're – and remember, a lot of those defensive linemen are young, you know, Jalen Carter and stuff like that. So I think they're in a good spot. They just had a tough year. Now, we talk about tough fan bases. We talked about Alabama. We talked about Philly. We got to talk about the Cowboys. Let's just throw this out here, Trey. Mike McCarthy, Nick Sirianni. Who gets fired? Does both of them get fired? Does none of them get fired? Go.
McCarthy. I think Nick Sirianni, I think it's 50-50. I think McCarthy, I think it's almost 80% that he gets fired. Like, I don't see how he comes back. He keeps having these playoff failures. In Dallas, to Jerry Jones' credit, they have built a good team. I'm talking about roster-wise.
Mm-hmm.
Why they keep failing like this, I don't know. Now, with the Dak Prescott conversation, it is kind of similar to the Tua conversation, where he's not the greatest quarterback in the world. So, like, it's hard for him to win a game on his own, but he's still better than 70% of the other NFL starting quarterbacks, so you don't want to get off of him. So that is a little bit of an issue, but it's not the largest issue in the world. I've seen Jimmy Garoppolo and Jared Goff get to the Super Bowl. So the idea that this Dallas team with this defense couldn't get further in the playoff than a wild card, I just think it's unacceptable. And you play, hey, hold up, you're going against a rookie quarterback. Well, not rookie quarterback, but this was his first year starting.
Essentially. I mean, yeah, he's not really technically a rookie, but yeah, I mean.
Yeah, essentially he's a rookie quarterback, yeah.
And look, let's give him credit. I mean, he balled.
He did, but I'm just saying, CJ Stroud balled, but I'm like, what's up with our offense? I mean, is it all Dak fault? I don't really think so.
Well, I think the biggest blame, that defense with the Cowboys just got, I mean, it got destroyed. You know, but, you know, the Dallas offense didn't do anything either. Man, it's just tough with these coaches. I mean, this is the ultimate thing we've been talking about on this pod this whole time. I mean, Nick Sirianni took his team to the playoffs 1 year. Second year, takes his team to the Super Bowl. Third year, loses in the playoffs in the first round, and he can get fired. I mean, it's a tough business. Like, that is a tough business. I mean, even McCarthy, he's getting 11, 12 wins every single year. They had the number one offense in the NFL. Now, the thing is, Trey, the problem with that is they got blown out at home in a playoff game. Like, it's not like they just lost the game. Because remember last year when they lost to the 49ers, it was on the road. They lost by, what? They lose by like a touchdown? It's like, all right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like, all right, you're playing a better team. You guys fall hard. You didn't get the dub. It happens. You guys are the favorites at home against the team. They were the lowest seeded team in the playoffs, I believe, too, the Packers. I think they're like the 7th seed. So, I mean, to get blown out like that, I mean, like I said, I was at the Heat game. And I just wanted to look at the score on my phone, and I looked up, it's 27-7. I'm like, what is going on? Like, and I had to go back and watch it later because I was just like, that is just unacceptable for that to happen. And when you got that many stars, Micah Parsons, now I know now they will get Trayvon Diggs back, you know, so that'll help them for next year. But it's unacceptable for the Cowboys. But honestly, it opens things up for the NFC. And I do want to say this. I did go on Front Street, Trey, in the beginning of the year. I don't know if you remember. This isn't my flowers segment, by the way. I'm going to admit that I was
wrong. It sounds
wrong.
like it.
No, this is how I usually open up my flowers segment, but I'm actually wrong. I said in the beginning of the year that the 49ers window is closed. Let me tell you something right now. This thing has opened up like, I don't know what, these floodgates. The 49ers ain't got no excuse, Trey. No excuse not to get to the Super Bowl. Because no disrespect, but there is no juggernaut left in the NFC that they have to play. The Lions are a really good team. They're not a juggernaut. The Bucs are a pretty good team. They're not a juggernaut. And who are they actually? Oh, the Packers, not a juggernaut. They have got no excuse. They don't have to play Philly. They don't have to play Dallas. No excuse not to win and to get to the Super Bowl. Now, if they don't win the Super Bowl, whatever, but they got to get to the Super Bowl. But is there any scenario that you see them not getting there? Is there any of those teams that I mentioned that's like, hey, they can get in the path? Or is it just like a foregone conclusion at this point?
I hate to say it.
Guaranteed in the sport, but yeah.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but it kind of feels like more conclusion. Like, do you think there's any team that could possibly upset them? I guess the only way I can see them losing is if they came out kind of lackadaisical because they had this feeling that it was a foregone conclusion. Which
I would tell you the team that I would have picked to match up with them is the Lions if they were at home. If they were at home, the Lions can actually match their physicality with that offensive line and stuff, and they like to play similar styles. But that's it. I don't think Green Bay is going to go in there and win. I would want them to win. That'd be a really cool upset to see. But I just don't think they're going to go in there and win. They didn't even go in there and win with Aaron Rodgers. They're going to go in there and win with Jordan Love.
I can't see
I
it.
don't
The
know.
only way I can see it is that if they just straight up underestimated Green Bay.
I just don't think that team has been together for a while. I don't think that leadership on that team is going to let that happen. I mean, the 49ers ain't got no excuse. And on the other end, your boy Lamar hasn't played in a couple weeks.
Oof.
He's playing. Are you worried about the Texans coming in there with a hot CJ Stroud?
The only reason I'm not too worried is just because of the Ravens defense. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they in the playoffs for whatever reason these last couple of years, they've been known to have a couple of letdowns. But I mean, with their defense, I feel like they can match up with basically anybody in the league. We got Mark Andrews, who's been practicing this last week, so hopefully he's coming back, even if it's only sparingly. That's a great option to have. I think that I think it's going to be really interesting, but I think that the Ravens are end up going to win by 10 points.
And then the matchup that we've all been waiting for, the Bills and the Chiefs. So we don't have to finally hear about the Bills fans crying about this game from 2 years ago. Are the Bills going to get it done this time? They're at home this time.
Yes.
Are they going to get it done?
I say yes.
Gonna...
I just don't think the Chiefs have enough.
Okay.
I don't think they have enough. And I know that they won this week, and they look pretty, I guess resounding is the word to use. Miami let them off the hook, but they look pretty good. But I think that the Bills, they have Dalton Kincaid, Josh Allen's ball and Stephon Diggs. Like, they just have enough pieces. Von Miller. Like, they have enough to actually get it done. The one thing I will say is this, though.
I just want to say this, Trey.
If they let Patrick get some confidence, they're in trouble.
So, no. They're not more in trouble. If the Chiefs beat the Buffalo in Buffalo, the Bills is done. They're done. Their window is closed, Trey. I'm closing the window because you know how devastating it will be. Everyone's been talking about that game from 2 years ago about, if the Bills got the ball, and people almost felt bad for the Bills. Like, they became a sympathetic figure. If they can't lose to the big brother again, they can't afford to lose, because it's not like the Bills would lose to anybody else. Like, the Bills lose to the Dolphins or Pittsburgh, whoever. That's not the same as if Patrick beats Josh Allen again. Do you agree with that at least? Like, that would be such a psychological thing at that point if they can't get over that hump and beat the Chiefs. Even if they beat the Chiefs and then lose to Baltimore next week, it wouldn't even matter. They would have already accomplished it. Like, this is almost their Super Bowl to me.
I think that they have a lot riding on the line just because of how it ended last time they played against the Chiefs. And I think also what's riding on the line is that the Bills see themselves as a Super Bowl contender. And what's that old saying? To be the best, you have to beat the best. Mm-hmm. We know that the Chiefs, they've been probably the best team in the last 5 years.
Not probably.
Yeah, no, probably. They have been. In order to get to the Super Bowl, you have to get over this hump. Like, this mental hurdle. You have to beat the Chiefs. And if you can't beat it now, like you said, it's over with. If they can't beat them now, I think Sean McDermott's gone. Stephon Diggs, he's probably going to have an off-season fit, so he'll probably be gone. And I think they just try to retool it again, because I think they just say, you know what, we hit our wall. We just can't get over the hump. Like, enough is enough. Let's try to redo this.
Right. All right, so you got Baltimore.
Yes.
I think I got Baltimore too in that game.
You think?
I'm gonna go. I'm kind of coming around with this CJ Stroud thing. Like,
he nice. Don't get me wrong. He's nice.
I mean, he's definitely nice. I also just feel like he can put some doubt in Baltimore. Like, I can totally see him showing up to the game, and then, like, Baltimore looks up and it's like 14-0. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh, they do. Like, I think it's a wrap. Like, I don't think Baltimore can get down.
I mean, they can get down if it's the first quarter, because
if it's 7-0, they can get down. If it's 14-0, I think it's a wrap. Because I think all the pressure is on Baltimore.
And that's what I'm saying. I just think CJ Stroud's playing with, and that team is playing with a certain level of energy, like almost like a FU energy. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, we're not even supposed to be here, but like we're here to ruin everybody's like season. And that's just the only thing that worries me. But I'm still gonna go Baltimore. I'm gonna go with the Chiefs though. I think Pat Mahomes and Rashee Rice and that crew, they kind of figured out some stuff against the Dolphins, and I think they can take that momentum. And Patrick Mahomes has heard the whole thing about how he's never won a playoff game on the road, all that stuff. I think they're going to perform well. And I just think they have that thing over Buffalo. I just think they just have this mental edge over the Buffalo Bills team. And Buffalo's dealing with a lot of injuries too. Like, if we're just talking about it from a schematic standpoint. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs on that end. I'm assuming you got the 49ers over the Packers. We don't have to talk about that one. We got the 49ers there. What are you gonna do with the Bills and the Lions and Bucks though? Because I feel like you can kind of convince me one way or the other, and I can kind of agree with you.
I'm gonna go with the Lions. I think they're just a better team. Yeah, I think it's just that simple. I think they're the better team. I think the Bucks. I think they kind of, even with Baker playing the way he's playing and Mike Evans and whatnot, I think they've kind of overachieved. You know what I mean? I know that Todd Bowles is on a hot seat, so a lot of fans were expecting them to go to the playoffs and win a game, and they did that. But I still think they kind of overachieved, and I just don't think they're going to get anything else out of that team anymore.
I will say this. If I'm the 49ers, assuming I beat Pittsburgh, assuming I beat Green Bay, you know who I don't want to see in an AFC Championship game? I would much rather see the Lions with Jared Goff and Dan Campbell, who's going to go for it on every fourth down and do whatever the heck he wants recklessly. You know who I don't want to see? The team that still has a bunch of guys that were just on a Super Bowl team a couple years ago. The team that has Todd Bowles, who's one of the best defensive minds in the league. I don't want to see Baker Mayfield with confidence. I don't want to see Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, guys that have played in big games before. That's what I don't want to see.
I agree with you.
I'm not saying that they would beat them.
No, if they make it. Listen, if they win next week, I'm not going to say they're going to be favored, but I think I would have them 50-50. Seeing as we both believe that the 49ers are just going to win if they play the 49ers.
Right. No, yeah, we believe they're going to win it. Yeah, we're just, but there's some scenarios that could change some things. Which is that scenario, actually. Yeah, that's the very scenario. Because you remember a couple years ago, Tampa went, what did they do? They went to New Orleans and they went to Green Bay, and they won both of those games on the road. They went in Lambeau and won an NFC Championship.
Yeah, but they had a different quarterback.
That's true. But they had Levante David and Devin White and a lot of those guys on defense. They had Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And I know Baker's not Tom Brady, but they got a lot of experience, which is what the Lions don't have. So I don't know. If I'm the 49ers, I'm like, hey, I hope I just see the Lions. And the Lions don't really play that well on the road anyway. So, but honestly, we've joked about it that it's not the greatest matchup for viewership. But I think the Lions and Bucks will actually end up being a good game. And I hopefully we get some good games and not as many blowouts as we got. So I'm excited to see how it turns out. But anyway, I want to thank everybody so much for joining us once again. Again, we're going to talk shop a lot. We got a lot of stuff to get into, but we wanted to cover the NFL playoffs because that's what's on everyone's mind. And we're going to have months and months without football, so we got plenty of things we're going to get into. But thank everyone for at least tuning in to us. Again, if you can, actually, I know you can, just like, subscribe. It takes a second. Give us a rate. It's not that difficult, and we do truly, truly, truly appreciate it. But tune in next time, and of course, I will swing it to Trey.
Again, like you said, thank you so much for joining us today. We really do appreciate it. If you can, like and subscribe, show us the love, interact with us.
Just do it. Just do it. Not if you can, just do it.
Hey, and if you really want to go the extra mile, interact with us on Instagram, show us some love, man. But again, we really do appreciate you guys listening to today. Until next time, peace.
Peace.